About 20 years ago, my Aunt Pat Cook talked to me about having a play about St. Joseph. She thought that the French settlement needed to have the fun and the joie de vivre of the French shown in music and a kitchen party. And so the play really came because of Pat's suggestion to me.
When I moved up here, and it has been 10 years now, Paul Truffaut had just started interviewing people for this play that was at that point was just sort of a glimpse in the society, except for Joan.
I first heard the story behind the play 20 years ago, and it amazed me. St. Joseph is a very quiet little place, a blink and you miss it sort of community. Not many businesses here, not quite a ghost town, but close. And to hear about this dynamic individual, Narcisse Cantin, who hailed from here, who, with the power of his ideas, turned the place into a boom town with a 200-room hotel, brickyards, factories, a government pier. It made me curious. What had turned St. Joseph into a boom town? Why had it all gone away?
I had sat in a meeting, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, where the Historical Society was actually determining whether they were going to go forward with this project or not. And there was a draft budget presented at that meeting, and it was very scary in terms of what the costs were and what would be involved in doing this project and mounting the production of Narcisse. And for a small historical society with very limited resources to take that on showed incredible bravery to me. And I think that that's always true of these kind of arts projects. I don't think people understand how much work and what the costs are, human resources, financial, to do community festivals, arts festivals, and theater productions, community theater. And I sincerely applaud that they had the foresight to take that risk, because it could have backfired horribly on them. But I felt very certain that night that it wouldn't. And I think I did say something to that point, that we could find funding. We could at least start to make it happen. And they did access funding through the Ontario Arts Council. We did get that funding, and it did provide seed money to get the play and the script production ready, and to leverage other funding for them by just showing that somebody else had already invested in it. So that's why I wanted to nominate them, because they had that foresight and that courage to take a risk.
I guess one of the things that has come through our mind and was at some of the meetings when I came to early meetings was how will this go? And as I sat and listened in this very room of what they plan to do, it mesmerized me in a small community like is here on this association, a huge project. And I couldn't believe it would go, but my support was always there for them, and it's still there for them.
When Duncan came to our meeting a long time ago now and presented this thought to us and said, here's what I would like to do, and he had a tentative budget at that time ready for us, and he was so enthusiastic and so positive about the fact that this could be possible that I was just totally taken with him, and I was willing to go ahead and jump right in.
I just like doing live theater, and I think history goes well when it's live theater. It's alive. It's alive. People from the community are actually there. Their children, their parents, their grandparents, friends, family, other people who are coming through as tourists coming through the area. And that's why I like it. I like it because it's alive.
I wrote the play and then it sat on a shelf for years, looking for a producer. looking for someone who could direct it, put it on. And I was so pleased with Duncan McGregor, who actually I have history with. He directed the first play I wrote called On Convoy. So I'd worked with him. He's a fabulous director. And I was so pleased that he took it on and that it was brought to life right here in the community where the history actually occurred, with people in the cast who have direct ties back to the history. And it ended up being a really special project.
My name is Mark Canton. I'm the great-grandson of Narcisse Canton, founder of St. Joseph, and enthusiastic promoter of the St. Lawrence Seaway.
There's a provincial plaque that was erected to identify Narcisse Canton as the father of the St. Lawrence Seaway, and I think he deserves the title because he began talking about some kind of waterway that would connect the Atlantic with the head of the Great Lakes on Lake Superior in the 19th century, way back in the 1890s. And there were other people that, of course, recognized that this kind of thing might happen someday, but he was certainly the one who pushed the idea. He saw that it would be important to connect ocean-going vessels with the head of the Great Lakes, and he also envisioned putting a canal from here in St. Joseph down to Lake Erie near Port Stanley. And the other canals, of course, were all of the canals that we have since built with the St. Lawrence Seaway, and others as well, New Welland Canal and so on. But the fact that he pushed it, he tried to persuade government, he tried to persuade business, he worked on it from the 1890s right through until the time he died in 1940. That the importance of having what we have come to call the St. Lawrence Seaway. So he really deserves the title as a result of his ideas, his imagination, and his persistence in pushing the idea.
His idea was to have St. Joseph as actually the hub of the St. Lawrence Seaway right here in St. Joseph, so which would have changed the landscape here dramatically. If you can imagine, St. Joseph would have stretched its way halfway to Sarnia, halfway to Goderich, halfway to London. It would have been a huge, huge city. So again, he bought the town site of St. Joseph, and he started, it was always called a drum to beat upon. So what he wanted to do is draw attention to St. Joseph, and he wanted to prove that St. Joseph, without a doubt, was definitely the best place for the hub of the St. Lawrence Seaway.
The Canton family have been great preservers of the history, and the documents they have preserved, the information they have preserved, are an absolute treasure trove for a playwright. There are 20-page-long letters from Narcisse Canton to his wife, to his chief business partner, to his son, and those letters provide invaluable insights into him as a man, as an entrepreneur, as a father, as a husband, as a visionary, and gave me great confidence in writing the play and writing about him, that I had a true sense of what he was like, and he's a fascinating guy. His ability to connect with people is incredible. The fact that he connected with American industrialists like Charles Schwab, head of Bethlehem Steel, and Frere Andre, a holy man from Montreal. He connected with people all over in different walks of life. And he was so charismatic, he had a way of drawing them into his grand projects.
My role was to motivate the committee to do their fundraising and publicity, and through that I worked very closely with the members of the Historical Society, and we raised all the funds that we needed to meet our budget expectations. And we sold ads for the program, which we started off as an 8-page program and ended up 24, thanks to their enthusiasm and inclusion of everybody in the community that wanted to participate. And then I coordinated and trained the volunteers, and sort of the point person that people came to when they had questions and needed answers to support what was happening with Duncan and Paul on the actual play.
just let you know that Mike has played a major role in every single project that we have done with the Society. And he's a landscaper, and for the play, he chose the site, and he did the landscaping to create the proper lay of the land for the site. He was the go-to guy for all the problems that happened, as far as situations that happened.
I was part of the Historical Society right from the beginning. My part in the play was selling ads in the brochure that we passed out at the play, and I really enjoyed that a lot. And I also worked at the play selling tickets, and I wasn't actually part of the play, but I really loved it.
And then, Dianne and I, we were involved with the play to a certain extent. We were part of the Historical Society, and we were part of the fundraising campaign. We had a couple of raffles going on. We had a bust of St. Andre produced by Frank. And so we raffled that off, and we also had some plaques of St. Andre. And that was a good fundraiser. It was very successful. We were selling the books too, also, from The Drum to Beat Upon. And we were selling actually memberships to the society. So it was all around a good effort for everybody. And just being part of the team.
Hessenland, I guess I shouldn't say as a business, but more as our family, has been involved since I've returned to the business, since Liz has come into the business, again in providing the space, but also being involved in different community activities that the Society has been involved with, and facilitating space for meetings. When the play was originally coming together back in the late and early spring, we held rehearsals in one of our banquet spaces for all the community actors to be part of that. And I mean, that was very interesting just to be a part of that and see how all of this would physically come together.
So our ladies group met, we formed a committee. 4 of us met with Karen Stewart, and after much discussion and a number of meetings, we decided on box lunches for the patrons. So we had Jerry Rader, Homestyle Catering from Zurich, who did make up the sandwiches, the salads, and the tarts. And our ladies put the box lunches together, brought them back to the site, and served them to the patrons each evening, along with cold drinks. A lot of cold drinks because it was very hot, as well as cookies and tarts, which were made at Jerry Rader Homestyle Catering in Zurich as well. We brought them back and served them to the patrons. And it was very successful.
I've been approached for being in the play because of my accent, and I've been at the reading, and then there were questions about what we thought about the play, and then I said, I think it's a really great idea to be able to present a play in French, and it won't be in French, but there will be French in it, and then they need music and songs, and I said, this is my field, and I think I'm really good at it because I taught music, or I taught choir, and I've been the song and the music, French music, all my life. So from Quebec, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and here in Ontario. So I was happy to be able to contribute to something, a big project, and I really trusted Duncan and Paul Truffaut. I think they're marvelous, and the Historical Society, who really pushed me to accept. So anyway, I thought it was a great idea because I never been approached as a French Canadian for my over 23 years in the area, and when I moved to Exeter 2 years ago, that's where I found an opening, and since then everything changed my life as a French Canadian. And I tell you the truth, I've been teaching songs in the play, and I've been choosing the music. I selected all the French music, and I was going to give as much as I could. And I was loading Paul and Duncan, but finally they were really good, and I think they're really happy, and I'm happy the way it turned out. And so I could share my culture with everybody, and that's the way it should be in Canada.
I was proud to be in the cast of Narcisse as St. Joseph's musician, and an American musician. I played the banjo and the guitar, and I was also in the scenes with Brother Andre. I was actually a farmer who helped get Brother Andre out of the ditch after he had ditched the car, and I was in the play with many of my relatives, my daughter Cosette.
When I embarked on this, I was talking to Joan. I knew that the play was something that was going to happen. And then she says, oh, well, you should bring the kids. There's open auditions. And I thought, well, yeah, okay. So I proposed it to my kids and said, well, do you want to go and just see what it's all about? And so we showed up and we sang and we said our lines, and Duncan said, well, read it again. And I said it with great intonation, and he said, you're in.
All of the stories that took place in this play were very near and dear to my heart. And it was surprising how during the rehearsals, the conversations, the small details that Duncan added to the play were very, very touching and brought me closer to the grandparents that have passed on and that we miss very much. So it was more than just a story for me. It was really a part of my history and brought me closer to my own children and helped them to understand a little bit of where we came from.
There was a scene, and I asked Paul to do this. I said, when I go through St. Joseph's, I don't know what it looked like. We go through here and it's like a blink of an eye and it's gone. Nobody knows what it really looked like. I said, I want to know what it looked like, and I want us to present that. And so because we had people who knew all of that and had done all the archival work, so I said, okay, let's see if we can get some models of that. But the key part of it was, I said, what about the farms? What about the people on those farms? Because it was a French settlement. How long had they been here, and were they staying? And the answer was yes, they had been here for a long time, and yes, they were staying. And many of the children in the play were connected to those families.
What was wonderful to see was, first of all, to see the full community in. Like looking up, saw a lot of my neighbors and saw a lot of the people who you knew they had French backgrounds, so you always wondered how they were going to react to this play that was really about their families. And the one part that touched me probably the most was a part of the play that had the children actually walking in and announcing their names as part of the settlers of the area. And a lot of these names, the Ducharmes, Laportes, Regiers, Durands, like on and on and on, these kids not only were playing that character, but they were actually saying their own last name, which was quite nice. And as they were walking and saying their name, it was a touching moment to see that that was actually a lot of what they were saying were actually members of the audience too. And you can see that it was actually affecting them as well.
The children come out with these, they look like small flags, and they really represented the land, the farmland, and they would place them down on the ground while they were singing the song in French, right? And after the song was over, each one would put this down and they would say the name, and they would see ma famille or la famille, but certain children would say ma famille Quentin, and that was because they were connected. And one of the women that you're going to be talking to later on, she came up and she said, can Lucas do the Ducharme family? And Lucas's last name, of course, is Ducharme. And of course, and I would look around the audience when the children would do that, and there were tears. And that's exciting. That goes back to the first question, all right, which is, why do it live? And that's one of the reasons. And so other people would pick that up. You know, they would hear the difference between la famille and ma famille.
You know what, it was one of the best experiences I could have done with him. He's musical, I'm musical, so it was a perfect opportunity to learn about our family history and to spend time doing something special together. Like, once in a lifetime opportunity that I'll never forget, and neither will he. So.
And I couldn't help it after the play being done, going over and asking, like, so did this bring a lot of memories for you, and how did it make you feel? And They really felt that watching this play, listening to the music was true to form with what they felt their childhood was like. So I thought that was pretty cool.
People come out of the play and they go, my gosh, I can't believe that actually happened. You can actually show them photos of the people that those actors portrayed. You can actually show them the maps of the seaway. You can actually show them the concrete, the sepia of the city of St. Joseph that we have. It's all concrete, it's still alive. The history is still alive, even though it was 100 years old, but the history is still alive.
Narcisse gave the community a chance to bring the history into the future, into the present. The stories that we have been hearing as children from our parents and our great-grandparents and our grandparents. It really got to put into life what we've been hearing, the stories that we've been hearing since children about our own families and about the families of Narcisse. It also gave us a chance to work together to bring those stories to life, to think of whatever resources we had to bring together for the good of the community, and it really did work.
I've known the Cantons since I moved here 13 years ago. In fact, I'm kitty corner to where Napoleon Canton lives, right in Demers, right in the hamlet. I know Monique and Tony, I knew John Paul, Velma, and all the family. I knew them quite well, so I felt it would be quite an honor to represent them in this play.
It's just the long-lasting friendships you make in the community, and it just really engages the community in a very special way, and it's really something, it's hard to describe, but it's just a feeling that everybody has participated and everybody was important and felt respected and engaged in the whole process, which was really fun.
Site was at the Catholic Church, and this was, I suppose this would be something that might not have seen many years ago, was Mennonites being involved with Catholics. And so it was a great community event to be a part of. We met many new people, as well as we met many friends from the area, and a lot of great friendships have evolved over it.
Well, I think the show was just brilliant. It was a community project. It captured the atmosphere. It captured the hostility toward his ideas that came from some quarters. It captured his imaginations and his thinking about it. And I thought it was just a tremendous experience for the whole community. Wonderful experience. And I congratulate the people who wrote the play, who directed the play, and who acted in the play. It was great.
And it was interesting to see the development of the play Narcisse and to get acquainted with the St. Joseph area.
It was just a real success.
Solidifying St. Joseph on the map. We were just talking about that, which is cool.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It's not just a dot on the map.
It's not just a dot on the map.
Yeah.
I think in many ways it's brought the community together because it was a little bit of a wider project than just St. Joseph itself. It extended throughout the municipality of Bluewater and even beyond. And some of the people who were acting in the play and many of the volunteers came from other communities around, and it's made us, in a small way, a little bit famous. And I think probably no other small community, or at least as small a community as St. Joseph in Ontario, and maybe even all the country, has done something that was quite as large a project as this one. And it took everybody for miles around working very hard to pull it off. And I was happy.
Well, I guess I believed in the project from the day that my aunt thought there should be a play. And during the process of this, I never lost my focus on the belief, and it just took time to get everyone else on board. But Mike Miller, our president, was on board right from the get-go. And I grew up in the area. I went to school with the kids from the St. Joseph and area, and I just it's very satisfying to see it come to be such an inclusive project, and to know that so many people in the community became involved.
We knew it was a special project. We knew it was a special project when it was here, and the reaction of the audiences, the fact that it sold out as soon as the community got a sense of what it was like, people flocked to it.
Thinking there tonight, it was mentioned about the healing, or what it has done for our community. This has done more to bring our municipality Blue Water together than any other project that I can think of in the last 10 years. The 10 years that we've been amalgamated from 5 different communities into one. And this, I believe, has been one of the most constructive and most valuable part of our community that has pulled them together. Truly been amazing.